I'm Zoe, and this is Dystrophy Diaries, the podcast. And I started this podcast a few months ago now, as I have limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 1B, and I really just wanted a place to sort of raise awareness of muscular dystrophy and show the realities of life with it. I think there's not always a lot known about muscular dystrophy, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions for out there, and a lot of judgment as well. I think that people think we can't do this or we can't do that. So I really wanted this podcast to sort of show the positivity and resilience of people with muscular dystrophy.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'll do a little introduction to myself.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone tuning in. My name is Conor McAuley. I'm a content creator and a passionate disability activist. With a background in media, I've sort of built my own platforms on social media, and I've partnered with various organisations to create impactful campaigns. Advocacy is at the heart of what I do. I'm dedicated to fighting for the rights of disabled people across a wide range of issues. I've had the privilege of working closely with the National Youth Council of Ireland, the Irish Wheelchair Association, and the Independent Living Movement of Ireland to drive meaningful change. I myself have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Duchenne is a progressive muscle wasting disease which is caused by the lack of a protein called dystrophin that helps keep muscle cells intact, and I was diagnosed at 3.5 back in 2005.
Oh gosh, you've answered half of my questions just in your introduction alone. That
I
was
know
a
I
really
wanted
good
to get everything
introduction.
in.
I like it. Just get everything rounded off in one go.
Exactly.
But my first question really was going to be, what is your experience with muscular dystrophy? I know you said you've got Duchenne, but really, how does that impact you day to day?
Yeah, well, I was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, sort of after seeing many doctors for about a year, because my mother knew there was something wasn't right. I had trouble getting up and down from the floor. I walked on my tippy toes and I fell over a lot, and I also struggled with pedaling and balancing on my feet. What's strange is there's no history of Duchenne in my family, and my mother isn't a carrier, so it isn't in some cases hereditary. It's something I've dealt with for as long as I can remember. Despite everything, I've sort of been lucky with my condition. For someone with Duchenne, I've been doing surprisingly well. Growing up, being different from my peers was tough, but I've blocked out a lot of those early childhood memories. And my sort of experience with muscular dystrophy is sort of the real struggle I started to feel when I went from primary school to secondary school was I could really feel my strength not being as good as it was. I had more difficulty getting up and down from a seat, and I sort of remember it becoming more noticeable. I tried to my best to fit in, but I also battled with my mental health during the time. I thought I was doing okay socially, but by the time I was 16, I sort of hit a rough point. I broke my femur, which left me mostly confined to walking within my house, and I had to start using a wheelchair whenever I went out for the first time in a long time. Before this, in school and places out and about, I wouldn't use my wheelchair, as I tried to sort of avoid any questions about my disability. And that's sort of my experience with muscular dystrophy. I could sort of go on about my day to day. Needs be.
Do you know, I actually really kind of relate a lot to what you've said there. Funnily enough, my first symptom was that I was a toe walker, and like you, it didn't really bother me that much in primary school. I think when you're that young and so early on in the journey, there's not as obvious of differences. You can kind of keep up more or less. But then, like you, when I started high school, I think that was really one when I realised my differences a bit more, because you're obviously surrounded by more people your age.
Yeah.
But that was when I started to struggle with getting up and down. Even to this day, my hardest maneuver to try and do is standing up from sitting down. That is the hardest thing. Oh gosh, it's like a little workout in itself. So I really relate to that. But I also, it took me a long time to accept my wheelchair. Like, I remember, oh god, I used to walk until I literally, like, physically couldn't. Like, I'd be in so much pain
Mhm.
and, like, so out of breath. And it was because I was just trying to keep up with everybody else my age. I didn't want to be different.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so, like, just, I don't want to say nice, but comforting to kind of hear that, like, to be able to resonate with your experience there, definitely.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that because really for me I feel like a big thing about sort of our community is being able to relate to other people's stories. And just being able to appreciate that as well and sort of say, it's not just me who went through that, but also other people within our community have gone through that as well. So yeah, why I sort of like telling my story as well is sort of being able to do that and sort of relate to other people and their stories.
I think it's really nice to kind of just know you're not alone, because with muscular dystrophy, it is such, like, all the different variants of it, they are so rare. It's not typical that you'd go to a school and meet somebody else with it.
Yeah.
All the people that I've met have been through online or specific charities. And I
Mm,
think that can often feel like a very lonely journey at first when you're not meeting people in like a natural, just bumping into someone with it. And I think that is also why I've really enjoyed being able to meet other people that I can relate to. Because I think on those days when you're really struggling, or when you're going through a bit of a rough patch with it, I think it
mhm.
can just feel like you're the only person that's
Yeah.
experiencing that.
Yeah, for sure. It can really feel like that. And the online community has helped me a lot as well. Because when I was growing up, we have our own muscular dystrophy Ireland. In Ireland, I know you have MD UK, which do a great job, but in Ireland, it's a way smaller country. So I got to know a couple of people growing up, but unfortunately, I was really in a rejection phase. When I was
Hmm.
growing up, like I went from maybe being friendly with people with the same condition as me in primary school. But when I got to secondary school, I sort of cut all contact and pretended, none of that stuff really ever was there for me. There was no really support or anything. But
Hmm.
that was my own choice. So I wanted to be perceived as what some people call normal, as
Hmm.
such. Because I wanted to fit in as well. It was really easier growing up to be able to say, oh, I want to fit in, or I want to be um, able to be like my peers in school. It's just one of those things where, yeah, it's like a rejection.
Do you know, I think so. I have a background in psychology, and to hear
Oh,
your, like, reflection on, like, your journey, and as you say, rejection, is honestly, like, really inspiring. Like, you're so, I don't know if I want to use the phrase self aware, but it's like you're just so aware of those feelings and what made you feel that way. And I really became passionate about psychology because I also had that phase where I was really just like,
yeah,
didn't want to acknowledge anything. I had a lot of anger, like I was very short tempered, just, not in a great place mentally. But I dealt with it by having therapy, and
mm,
honestly, like, it was life changing. And I just think it's so, again, like, refreshing to hear you talk about that and acknowledge it, and that you've come out the other side of it, because I think a lot of people don't really like to talk about that
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, and I really did struggle as well. I had a lot of therapy myself, growing up, especially when I got to about 15 or 16, I would say. I really started to get a lot of therapy and get into that because I knew sort of what I was going through wasn't exactly right. I was sort of rejecting myself and rejecting other people who may have conditions similar to me. And really it came to a point where I didn't really care about anything, and it just got really dark. It was more so
Mhm.
like I didn't really
Yeah.
care about school, or I didn't really care about friendships, or even my own family life. I was sort of getting to a point where I was like, what is the point of this? All I want to be is like them, but how am I ever going to be like them? So yeah, it's sort of that thing of yeah, it can be just very tough, and especially the psychology thing. That's really cool that that's sort of the career that you've gone into, because some people have called me very self-aware, but yeah, it can be in certain sort of
Oh,
certain like issues. I can be very self-aware, whereas other things I'd be like, what's going on, you know? Um, so yeah, that is really cool.
oh, sorry, it buffered a bit then. I don't know if that was my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi. It'll probably be fine in the recording.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
But
I seen that and I got a bit distracted. I was like, oh, what's going on?
yeah, I was like, but anyway, it's sometimes a part of the journey that a lot of us don't really like to acknowledge, that
Hmm.
either seeking therapy or like working through those things. But I personally look at it as like a really big achievement, and I'm so thankful that I did seek that help, as I'm sure you are, because it really just helped me kind of channel a lot of the resilience that I had, but put it in the right places, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense completely. And I always had this stigma towards mental health, especially at that age. I think we've gotten better as a society now
Mm-hmm.
than we maybe. That was only about like 8 years ago or 7 years ago, but it was a very different place. And just being able to actually go and seek that sort of support was something to me that still means a lot to me, to say, at that age, you feel like you know everything, and then having to go and actually seek support is something else. So yeah, any sort of teenagers listening in who are sort of struggling with their mental health, who may have muscular dystrophy, I definitely would recommend talking to somebody.
I agree. I think it honestly, it's one of the best decisions I think you can make when you're in that place. It's just so helpful to be able to get a lot of things off your chest and process it. You mentioned that you're obviously a content creator,
Hmm.
and I'm quite curious to know, like, what type of content you put out and what inspires your content.
Yeah, well, really for me, I started doing my content back in 2020, when COVID sort of came along. I sort of had nothing else to do with my time, so I just thought to myself, here, look, I'll put my time into something. And content creation has always been something I really liked. I always really liked technology, and I always thought it was a cool thing. So I just thought at the time, why not do that? And it was sort of to help other people with disabilities. So I think with my content, that's always sort of been the aim, is to help other people with disabilities by telling my own story. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they can relate to my story in a way, and we can connect through it.
I think it's I follow a few disabled content creators, and I always see such a strong community become formed with it, because a lot of people, like you say, I think people can kind of try and seek it out a bit online, when you're maybe feeling a bit alone or you
Yeah,
want to learn more about a diagnosis. The first place you go to is the internet. And I think now, rather than just seeing a lot of negatives and, like a lot of medical
yeah,
information, you get to see like actual people living with those conditions, and things that work for them and things that don't. And I think that's why it's so nice to see that disabled content is starting to kind of get a bit more, like a bit more attention and become a bit more focused in the media.
yeah. No, I completely agree with you on that. Like I've seen a documentary recently, and it was about sort of traveling across Europe through a plane as being a disabled person. And I've just seen some videos and stuff as well online where it's people literally dragging themselves through the aisles. And yeah, it's just crazy. I feel like we are getting more attention. I feel like though we need to get more attention than we're
We
getting at
do.
the moment. But I feel like we've sort of come to a good place where it's starting to get out there a bit more. And I hope within the next couple of years we really do see a sort of difference within the outside world and not just our community, where we can sort of talk to each other and share these videos. I really do hope other people, maybe people who are able-bodied, would be able to see that this is just wrong what's going on. Especially things like travel with the airplanes and stuff. People having to drag themselves to the airplane toilet. It's just crazy in 2025.
It is crazy, isn't it? I've seen those videos and I follow a lot of like disabled travellers, so that their sole content is like highlighting those issues, and I just don't understand why we're still having those access issues like today, when
Yeah.
there's been so many studies come out highlighting affordable solutions that wouldn't be that difficult to implement. I don't understand it. I really don't.
No, either do I, to be honest. It's sort of a hard thing, and I think it's different for different levels. I think when it's airplanes and say airplane companies, they're companies with a lot of money,
Mhm.
whereas I understand if it's say like a local business or something, but yeah, I sort of believe that there should be a wheelchair accessible bathroom on a plane. I know there usually should be on maybe four flights that are maybe over 4 hours, but
Mhm.
I know actually in America the industry there is actually better than here. I know here we have sort of like Ryanair and stuff like that, and we know like even with people who are able-bodied how they
Yeah,
tried to sort of implement different things. So it is crazy though in this day and age, and we're still having to fight for just these little things.
I agree. I recently went on an airplane. I hadn't been abroad in like 17 years. So the last time I'd gone, my condition, I wasn't in a wheelchair. Like I was a
Mhm.
lot more mobile. So it's a very different experience now,
Yeah.
going where I'm a lot more affected. And it was such a struggle. I mean, it was only like I think 2 hour flight, but again, like I really struggled trying to access the bathroom because
Hmm.
even though I can walk, like my balance isn't great,
Yeah.
and it's such a tiny space, and there was nothing to hold on to. Like there was no rails or anything, and it was quite a low seat as well, and
Yeah.
it was a disaster. And even just the process of the assistance, like I was left on the plane for
Yeah.
about 20 minutes after, and we didn't get back till like the early hours, and we were
Hmm.
exhausted and just went to get home, and we were
Yeah.
sat there on the plane while everybody else had left. And it is quite a vulnerable position to be in. I mean, I'm quite lucky that if it came to it, I would be, it wouldn't be easy, but I could get
Hmm.
myself off. But you do just feel so vulnerable and in the hands of other people, and when that support isn't in place, it is very scary.
Yeah, it can be very scary. Like I know myself, I've done a lot of traveling. I love to travel and I love to go to new places. But there's just yeah, it's crazy. Like you're just worried that your wheelchair will get damaged when you're on the plane because you can't see
Mm.
what's going on. Um, so there's loads of different issues as well. Waiting around. So I've had to wait an hour before, even 20, 30 minutes as well. And then you get to the baggage area and then your bag is gone. Someone has took the bag, so you have to wait a couple of days to get the bag back. So
Oh
yeah,
god.
it's all these different things that you really worry about. But yeah, I love to travel and I've sort of risked it with my chair. And I know some people in our community are like afraid to actually fly, like what you're saying yourself, first time flying in 17 years, that's like a long time.
It is a
I
long time.
feel like yeah, I feel like we shouldn't have to be, scared. For even like our wheelchairs going on a plane. I just feel like we should be able to travel like anybody else.
I agree, and I think now that I've done it again, I really want to, like, I don't want to be held back from it. And there are definitely anxieties around flying for these reasons, but not enough that I'd say it would make me not want to go again. And I think my perspective on life with my health has always been, you just never know what tomorrow is gonna bring, and so you've just gotta go for it. You've just gotta really make memories and live each day the best that you can, really.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I always have this little thing that I say, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah,
You just don't know what will happen. I know that's a bit more of a
I say that too.
straight to the point. But yeah, I always say that, and I'm like, oh, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Why not do this and take the risk? Like I'm lucky in a sense because I know some people with Duchenne may be worse off than I am, and I sort of see the positives. As in, I say to myself, oh, you may not be able to walk anymore, but I take those risks. I, take my wheelchair on planes and stuff, and I go traveling. So, yeah, I have to see, those things as good things, and not everything is bad. You have it better than somebody else out there. But you should be able to be annoyed about these things though as well, when they don't go right. But yeah, I would sort of like encourage people to do all these things while they can. Like that's my big motto. So
Yeah,
yeah, do these things while you can. But it is hard not to be frustrated or feel nervous about things going wrong.
I agree, and I think I really resonate with that perspective. Because that's how I really look at it too. And I think, especially when you have like a progressive condition like
Yeah.
us, it's that fear, isn't it? And you're just always like, I want to do it today while I can do it today. But I think, like you, it's completely normal and understandable and right to have those fears and be annoyed, but you don't let it stop you. Like, you can scream and shout about it, and we raise awareness of it, but don't let it put you off, and
Mm,
stop living your life, because we're not the problem. Like, it's not us. It's all of these. It's the society that has made things so
mm,
accessible for so many years that
yeah.
now they're trying to play catch up and make it accessible for everyone. And it's I think we're slowly getting there, but we've got so far to go.
Yeah, we definitely have so far to go. I think access is a big thing, really for a lot of people. Maybe not just people in wheelchairs, but there's other disabilities as well, which I think can sometimes be forgotten about as well, which is a big thing, like people with invisible disabilities and stuff. Because I always sort of think about myself in that sense when I was up and walking, because I sort of hid my wheelchair and was invisible in a sense because I was, you know, didn't I was able to sort of portray myself as being able-bodied as possible. Maybe in my mind, I was, more able-bodied than I was, because I always had, muscular dystrophy. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's this thing of, I wish people would just catch up, and especially because, I don't know what the statistic is, but I think I don't know what the statistic is, so I can't go and say what it is. But I know a person could become disabled or something like that, or are most likely to become disabled in their lifetime at some point.
I think, isn't it
So
like one in four? I'll need to
yeah,
check. I'm sure it's something
something like
like that.
that. I think in my head I was sort of thinking 70% of people or something like that, but I could be
Yeah.
completely wrong.
Don't hold, like, anyone listening to this. Don't quote us on the
Yeah,
numbers there. But no, I completely agree, and I think that's where a lot of people overlook it and think it'll never affect them, and but it can, it can
yeah,
happen to anybody at any time, and I think, yeah, that then your whole world would change and you'd struggle to access things just like we do. So why not make it accessible for everybody now? But yeah, I like to think maybe we're slowly getting there, I hope. But
yeah.
um one thing that I always ask my guests is, obviously people listening might not know much about the condition, or they might know
Hmm.
little bits, but what would you like to say? And to be fair, it doesn't have to be about Duchenne's. It can either be something you'd like listeners to know about you specifically, or something
Hmm.
that you do. anything at all, what message would you like to put out there?
Yeah, so it's I'll sort of go on with Duchenne here. Having Duchenne, it hasn't really stopped me from living my life. I just have to live it in a slightly different way than others, as in, you have to make an awful lot of planning before I can go out in the morning. I also need help with certain things. My life is still very meaningful, and Duchenne is a part of me, but I always say it's not all of me. I feel with all illnesses or disabilities, no two people are the same. It sometimes can be mindset. The people around you can help as well, where you live, and sometimes maybe a little bit of luck. In my case, I'd say it's a little tiny bit of luck as well as to how you cope with your condition. But nobody's story, I would sort of emphasize, or body is the same. So you just have to take the challenges day by day and try to stay positive with whatever you do.
I think that was a really beautiful message to say, honestly, and I wish all them years ago I could have heard something like that because I think it would have provided me with a lot of comfort. I think you're right in that there's going to be ups and downs, and I think you do need resilience with these
Mm.
conditions. You've got to have a good perspective and mindset and know how to process a lot of the emotions that it flares up. But as you say, we still have meaningful lives. I mean, I'm getting married in a couple of months, and if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I'd have been like, whoa, no, never going to happen. But
Yeah.
you do live a, as they say, normal life, but you just have different hurdles to get over. But I would never look at my condition and say it's ruined my life or it stops me. I just,
Mm.
as you quite rightly put, you just have to find your own way of doing things, and I think that almost makes things a bit more meaningful. Like everything I've achieved in life has more of a meaningful
Mm.
like side to me. Like, and even just the little things I find myself appreciating, just feeling okay and being here and getting up in the morning, and I think it's provided me with a real um appreciation for life, which I'm quite thankful, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah, I think really in my case, like I sort of just sometimes see people maybe thinking the condition is their whole lives, but we do have to live as well, and I think that's the main thing. Um, really with these conditions, like you have to live as well, even though it is hard. But I don't think I would have done all this type of stuff that I have done if I didn't have this condition. So I also see the positives in that as well. Whereas I don't think I would have ever worked as hard. I don't know what my life would have been like, but I definitely wouldn't have had these experiences which I've had, and I don't think I would sort of trade them for the world.
No, that's always how I've looked at it. I think I've met some wonderful people on this journey that I'm so thankful for, that I absolutely would not have met without muscular dystrophy. And even just being able to do the podcast and kind of build a tiny little platform as such, I never would have had any of these experiences without it. So, yeah, I'd never change it. Definitely not. I'd maybe have given myself a little bit of an easier
Yeah.
ride, but other than that, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, I'm the same as well. Maybe just being a less hard on ourselves growing up, maybe, it would have been a lot easier.
Oh, well, honestly, Connor, I've had a really great time chatting to you tonight, and it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the podcast. So, thank you so much for your time.
No worries at all. I really appreciated it. And yeah, I love the podcast as well. I was listening to a couple of episodes before I came on, so really
Really?
cool.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Also the Scouse accent as well, I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I've been to Liverpool I think about 12 or 13 times. So I absolutely love Liverpool.
It is a really great place, honestly. I never thought I had that thick of a Scouse accent, but now that I've been doing these podcasts and I speak to people like from other places, they're always commenting on it, and I'm like, oh, okay. I never knew.
Well, no, I actually love it because even I was watching the Traitors recently, and I've been watching that, I've been binging that, and there was two people in it from Liverpool, and I was like, first reaction was, "Oh my God, they have the Scouse accent! How good is that?" I don't know. It's just really cool.
Oh, I was obsessed with the Traitors recently. Oh my goodness.
I know, me too. I was binging the whole thing.
Oh, I was just sat on the edge of my seat the entire time. Especially like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna spoil it because I just finished. Some people might not have finished it, but I really think everything you've said today, I think will resonate with a lot of people, and I think it will really help some people too. So, thank you for your time.
No worries at all. As I say, I appreciate being on here. Like getting to raise awareness, like is really cool. So even though it is to our own community, I feel like in our community, some people don't realize effects certain muscular dystrophies have. So it's really cool. Like I would know a lot about Duchenne, but I wouldn't know a lot about other muscular dystrophies. So yeah, it's really cool being here.